By 2019, the feud was burning again. The attack on the Yamaguchi-gumi's number 2 was the warning that Takayama's return could change the war. The state's response was swift. 2 sixth-generation Yamaguchi-gumi affiliates were immediately arrested on attempted murder charges. The shock ran deep. The target was no minor foot soldier, but the Yamaguchi-gumi's absolute second-in-command. The hit resonated especially hard because it happened in Kobe, the Yamaguchi-gumi's untouchable home ground. With the boss's right-hand man gone, the Yamaguchi-gumi structure began to visibly unravel. By August 2019, the feud had devolved into a ruthless cycle of retaliation, with fresh violence answering old blood. By autumn, police recognized a clear and terrifying pattern. The split was driving an open, escalating war. In October 2019, automatic gunfire erupted right outside the Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters in Kobe. The attack was timed perfectly during a regular meeting, with the most senior Yamaguchi-gumi executives gathered inside. Nearly the entire executive board was assembled when the gunman appeared on their doorstep. The underworld was stunned. A brazen daylight hit had been executed in the Yamaguchi-gumi's own front yard. The assassin, Maruyama Toshio, approached disguised as a photographer, a camera hanging casually from his neck. Suspicion rose as the disguised man lingered near the headquarters, acting right under the eyes of nearby police. Suddenly, Maruyama drew his weapon, launching a fatal attack on Yamaguchi-gumi members approaching the building. Inside, the executive meeting dissolved into chaos as gunfire echoed from the street. In the bloody aftermath, 2 victims were identified from the headquarters attack. Following his arrest, Maruyama's health deteriorated, and his quiet death in prison gave the case a grim, unresolved ending. In a world where hesitation meant weakness, the Yamaguchi-gumi boss, Nakada, moved to enforce retaliation himself. Nakada, the 4th-generation Yamaguchi-gumi boss, personally launched an attack on a Kodokai liaison office in Kobe. Yet, even years later, he firmly denied the charges as the case dragged through the courts. A veteran Tokyo executive later made a grim observation. When a boss has to pull the trigger personally, it signals the organization itself is collapsing. But the crushing pressure on the Yamaguchi-gumi was only half the story. Takayama's release was imminent, restoring the one figure who could reorganize the 6th generation from the top down. His return did not point to peace. It marked the opening salvo of a new, massive counteroffensive. Anticipating the worst, police expanded surveillance, monitored routes, and deployed rapid response units before dawn on release day. Their preparations focused on one absolute objective: prevent a public assassination the moment Takayama stepped back into the open. By the time he returned home, authorities had already locked down every likely route and contact point. At daybreak outside Fuchu prison, a heavy police presence signaled that a historic moment was underway. Mobile riot units in full tactical gear locked down the perimeter as the release time drew near. Camera flashes exploded as a van rolled up to the gate for Takayama's transfer. Takayama Kiyoshi stepped out into the light, ending his 5-year sentence and instantly reigniting the conflict. Across Japan, the news media focused intensely on Takayama's long-awaited release. As Wakagashira, the absolute number 2 and the most likely successor, Takayama's movements carried weight far beyond a standard prison release. The terrifying prospect of an attack or a massive celebration widened police contingency plans immediately. Those fears had been sharpened by the brutal attack on 2 Yamaguchi-gumi members just 8 days prior. His release was deliberately set for 6 in the morning, an unusual arrangement meant to limit public chaos. The second he walked free, surveillance teams began tracking his every movement. As Takayama headed towards Shinagawa Station, police mapped routes to both follow him and seal off points of public exposure. For investigators, the prison gate marked the exact moment the 6th generation's organizational recovery began. Shinagawa Station instantly became a high-risk civilian zone the moment Takayama's route leaked. Any attack there would have endangered thousands of commuters, bystanders, and everyone caught along the path. Even so, police calculated the Kobe faction was unlikely to strike Takayama directly in such a massively exposed space. Their true fear was rogue actors or eager subordinates moving on their own initiative. In contrast, the 6th generation headquarters treated his return as definitive proof that the empire had regained its operational center. The group's internal paper, Yamaguchi-gumi Shinpo, ran a front-page feature welcoming Takayama back and framing his return as an absolute victory. The article ruthlessly branded the Kobe faction as traitors, predicting their self-destruction during Takayama's absence. Takayama moved instantly, initiating personnel changes, driving internal reforms, and rebuilding ties with friendly syndicates nationwide. His outreach extended to allied offices across the country, moving rapidly to secure loyalties and reassert total influence. Surveillance teams shadowed his every move, watching for any sign that the violence would flare again. Since the 2015 split, more than 130 violent incidents had been recorded, a grim measure of the enduring instability. By then, Takayama had become the single figure the National Police Agency most strongly suspected of orchestrating the recent attacks. Analysts viewed the hits on the Yamaguchi-gumi and Ikeda-gumi as surgically calculated blows meant to rot the Kobe faction from within. Under Takayama's unseen influence, subordinate groups mobilized like rival warlords, desperately seeking the initiative. By then, the ultimate outcome of the split seemed to hinge entirely on Takayama's next move. Even from behind bars, investigators believed Takayama had continued to dictate decisions inside the empire. Senior police suspected the structure was designed to allow brutal action from below, while maintaining perfect distance at the top. That deniability was what made prosecution nearly impossible. Influence could be felt everywhere, but rarely proved as legal conspiracy. Law enforcement feared not only the violence, but the reactivation of a system that coordinated crushing pressure without visible orders. It was a system that ran purely on rewards, punishment, and the control of money, The very structure police feared his release would instantly reactivate. Takayama was also a master of Shinogi, the hidden, highly lucrative money-making operations that sustained the organization. One key driver of the Kodokai's rapid ascent in the early 2000s was their grip on construction rights, tied to Chubu International Airport. Billions of yen were generated through extortionate fees on construction materials and transport logistics. Local nuisance prevention budgets were quietly funneled into Kodokai coffers, a mechanism that let massive construction projects conceal the flow of illicit money. The organization expanded its grip into cement and other vital materials, weaponizing that reach into massive operating funds. A full-scale investigation opened into Takayama's Shinogi operations, chasing every financial trail investigators could unearth. Even so, the police could not push the case all the way up to the Kodokai's top command. That legal gap mattered. With his finances fully intact, Takayama could shift seamlessly from recovery to open, crushing pressure on the Kobe side.